Feel free to check out my TeePublic after the video, and support me on Patreon. Watch till the end of the video for more. In 1993, the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers became a global phenomenon, a team of multicolored superheroes who fought evil to defend the Earth. While this was the first exposure to tokusatsu for many audiences at the time, the original show that was used to make Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, known as Kyoryu Sentai Zyuranger, was actually the 16th entry in an ongoing television franchise from Japan. This franchise was known as Super Sentai, and it is considered one of the major pillars of Japanese special effects media, and still thrives to this very day. But before we can talk about Sentai, we must talk about its creator. Shotaro Ishinomori was, and still is, considered one of the most important creators in Japanese media. With such great classics as Cyborg 009, Kikaider, and Robot Detective, Ishinomori would be placed alongside the likes of Go Nagai, Ken Ishikawa, Tatsuo Yoshida, and Osamu Tezuka when it comes to the most influential mangaka of all time, and his legacy would only grow stronger as he was responsible for giving Japan one of its most iconic superheroes. Kamen Rider was the story of Takeshi Hongo, and eventually Hayato Ichimonji, who fights a terrorist organization named Shocker to stop them from conquering the world. The series was an instant hit with Toei, as the show dealt with themes relating to justice and the value of human life, plus some really cool fights, while kickstarting the henshin boom of the 70s. Kamen Rider would make Ishinomori the man he would become, but Toei was still hungry. Toei producer Toru Hirayama wanted Ishinomori to create a story that was like Kamen Rider, but focused on a team of superheroes. The logic was that the more heroes, the more personalities, the more viewers to connect with, and ultimately the more ratings. First, Ishinomori began writing a concept known as Red One, where each of the members donned a different color, mask, and number, while being referred to by their color and mask. There was Red Mask, the leader, along with Blue Mask, Yellow Mask, Pink Mask, and Green Mask. As more concepts were thrown around, the mask monikers would be given to the story's villains, as the heroes would then be referred to by their color in Japanese with the moniker of Ranger. There was Aka Ranger, Ao Ranger, Kira Ranger, Momo Ranger, and Mido Ranger. Together, they would be known as the Secret Squadron Gorenger. Himitsu Sentai Goranger aired on April 5th, 1975, taking Kamen Rider's old time slot, and much like its spiritual predecessor, was a massive hit. The story begins with an underground terrorist organization known as the Black Cross Army, led by the Black Cross Fuhrer, as they launch a surprise attack on the numerous Japanese military bases tied to a United Nations military branch known as the Earth Guard League, or EAGLE for short. The Eagle's Japanese branch was known for being one of their best and was the Black Cross Army's first target in their pursuit of global domination. Their assault ended up killing countless members of EAGLE, and as 5 recruits survived the attack, they came together under the wing of Commander Edogawa, played by Toshio Takahata, plus forming Goranger, to put an end to the Black Cross Army's reign of terror once and for all. It was a time where spy thrillers were all the rave, with the James Bond series growing in popularity, especially in Japan, where manga such as Golgo 13 and films like E-Spy would come out as a response to this wave of visual storytelling. Hell, you can still see its mark through manga and anime like City Hunter and video games like the Metal Gear Solid franchise. Hence why, as opposed to feeling more so like a superhero show like Kamen Rider, Goranger has this spy thriller feel to it, as many of the episodes deal with stealth and espionage in some form. Especially as the Rangers come off as being more tactical than Kamen Rider, each carrying their own weapons, which come out of the heroes' visors. Look, I know it's ridiculous, just roll with it. In a way, it's almost like Ultraman, but if Ultraman was a lot more focused on the science patrol, and I think that's what makes Goranger very special, is that as opposed to having our heroes rely on superpowers, which granted their suits give them superhuman abilities, their real power comes from their will, their wit, and of course, their teamwork. Speaking of which, let's take a look at each team member. First, we have Aka Ranger. Tsuyoshi Kaijo, played by Naoya Makoto, is the headstrong leader of the multicolored squadron. He's easily one of the best examples of a team leader, being someone who sets a standard for his peers, always taking action and always finding ways to help his team adapt when faced with adversity. Also, being the most iconic member of the squad, the Red Ranger would be a symbol of hope for not just Eagle, but the young viewers watching the series back in 1975. And it makes sense that his weapon is a rope that keeps the team together. Second, Goranger, and my god, Akira Shinmei, played by Hiroshi Miyauchi, is probably the baddest bitch of the bunch. I mean, just look at the dude. He's got mad fucking drip. But thankfully, it is this drip that speaks so much about his character. He's calm, laid back, almost like a flowing river, which makes him a perfect Blue Ranger in terms of personality, and a bow and arrow is a fantastic weapon of choice for this character. Third, Goranger. Daita Oiwa, played by Baku Hatakeyama, is a big goofball, but he's not to be underestimated, because he's definitely the muscle of the team, constantly comparing himself to Mount Aso and getting his gains from big-ass bowls of curry. No, seriously, this dude loves curry to the point where the villains always trap him with it. And make no mistake, Daita can straight up crush people to death just by bear hugging them. The Goranger's weapon of choice being a staff is very fitting for a lovable brute like him. But unfortunately, due to having other commitments a good ways into the series for a bit, Hatakeyama couldn't fit Goranger in his schedule and had to step out for the time being, and would then be replaced by Ijiro Daruma, playing the role of Daigoro Kumano before Hatakeyama would return. Daigoro reminds me of both Musashi and Benkei from Getorobo, being a dedicated new recruit and despite his shortcomings, gives 100% in any situation. Fourth, Momoranger. Peggy Matsuyama, played by Lisa Komaki, is perhaps one of the most important characters in the history of Tokusatsu. Very rarely do you ever see a woman play such a major part in a production like this. In fact, Peggy probably gets the most screen time out of all the 5 Rangers, being someone who's always willing to take risks, always finding ways to thwart the plans of the Black Cross Army, even going up close and personal, and even leads the charge for the Gorengers' final attacks, which I'll get into later. The Peach Ranger's weapons of choice are bombs, which goes in hand with her espionage capabilities very well, and just shows how vital of a member she is. By the way, I called her Peach Ranger instead of Pink Ranger, as Momo is Japanese for Peach. I do have a theory as to why she's called Momo Ranger and not Pinku Ranger. Simply put, the 70s was a time where Pinku Eiga, or pink cinema, which is basically softcore pornography, was rampant. And it wouldn't be a good idea to potentially associate a character from a children's television series to such a thing. And fifth, Midoranger. Kenji Asuka, played by Yukio Ito, is the hot-blooded young buck of the team. While quick to anger, which can sometimes get the best of him, it is his skill and aggression that helps him make a valuable asset to the team. This is further shown with the Green Ranger's boomerangs, only adding to how unpredictable he is. This is why Goranger and Sentai as a whole became so memorable, as it groups together several individuals who are very different and uses their differences to come together for the greater good. It's an incredible way to evoke teams of teamwork, brotherhood, fellowship, togetherness, unity, and most importantly,
it's family.
These are themes present all the way back in perhaps the most revolutionary piece of literature from East Asia, Journey to the West, about a band of people with completely different backgrounds on a quest for enlightenment. Only difference is that the Gorengers are on a quest for peace. Not that quest for peace. And you truly feel that the Rangers are a family with the way they communicate with one another, always looking out for each other, and having a lot of fun moments that aren't just beating the shit out of terrorists and cultists. Even when Daigoro comes into the show, he's welcomed by the Gorengers with open arms, and they all treat him like a younger brother, but are always willing to push him to his limits when necessary. Though with all this time dedicated to the heroes, let's talk about the villains, the Black Cross Army, starting with the Black Cross Fuhrer. He's a Nazi, and also a clan member. That's his character, pretty much. His generals have some good banter here and there, especially from Iron Mask and Volcano Mask, but that's kinda it. They're pretty much your typical henchmen, but not bad by any means, as they're serviceable enough to keep the ball rolling. My favorite of them is probably Daishogun Tutankhamun, as he's summoned by an actual cultist ritual and is perhaps the most violent of the generals, as his plans end up actually killing people. Plus, his design is cool, so can't complain. The weekly villains themselves do start off interesting, but unfortunately become forgettable as the first half of the series definitely comes off as formulaic. So it's hard to find a villain that really stands out, aside from appearance of course, because holy shit, the villain designs in Sentai are freaking insane. Like, there are some really good designs like Gold Mask and Skull Mask. Then there's some really dumb ones like Poison Gas Mask and Door Mask? What? And there's some that are just absolutely bonkers. There's a dude who looks like the mascot from Mech Tonight. There's a dude whose name is literally Boat Ear Mask. How does someone even come up with this? By the way, these dudes in black are called Zoldiers, not joking. But it's not until the second half of Goranger where things really start to pick up for the show. Now that Toei was able to fund the series with more money, there were more elaborate set pieces, more complex episodes, and more memorable villains in the sense that they were willing to just do anything at this point. Like the Black Cross Fuhrer, for example. First, he was dressed like a clan member, and now... What the fuck is that? Why does he have that thing on his head? I mean, hey, I guess it's a good way of mocking actual neo-Nazis. Aside from that, there's a villain whose head is a gun, a giant ear, a tire, a piano, ice skates, pineapple! Okay, admittedly, there are some really cool designs in the second half, like Tiger Mask, Iron Spider Mask, Can Opener Mask, Glasses yeah, a lot of these are fucking stupid. Listen, I'm super against the whole, haha, look guys, isn't Japan so wacky thing, but holy shit, it's impossible to avoid in this case. But at the same time, the absurdity of these villains is what helps make the show very memorable in a way. They definitely leave an impression, and that's all that matters. And now, I'm about to talk about perhaps my favorite villain in the series. Get ready for this. Locomotive Mask. What's his deal? He has a train for a head, and literally all he does is run with a radar device given to him by the Black Cross Army. That's it. Nothing else. And this guy is just a force of nature to the Rangers for God knows whatever reason. Why? Because fuck you, he has a train for a head, he's fucking invincible, and that is until the Gorengers have no choice but to use their final attack, which plugs him up and causes him to explode. I absolutely adore this episode in the same way I love the Fly episode in Breaking Bad, in the sense that when you look at it from an analytical standpoint, it has absolutely nothing to do with the actual story and has no effect or impact on anything whatsoever. Yet it just so happens to be one of the most intense and brilliantly written episodes in the series. Like, just look at Locomotive Mask's introduction in this episode, and how right off the bat, he immediately sets the standard for what kind of episode this is. Other noteworthy villains in the second half of Goranger also include Telephone Mask and Baseball Mask, which also offer some very interesting concepts but are conveyed in just about the way you expect. All you have to do is look at these guys and go, yeah, I know what this guy's about. I know it sounds like I'm trashing on these villains, but honestly, I love them. It's unfathomable how they were creative and brave enough to pump these villains out. So I mentioned it a couple of times in this video, and that is the Gorengers' final attack, the Gorenger Storm. This final attack consists of Momoranger pulling out a soccer ball, or football depending on where you're from, and kicks it to Mito as he then passes it to Ki, then Ao, and finally Aka, who jumps in the air for the finisher, kicking the ball to the opponent and causes them to explode on impact. Once this ball is pulled out, it's over. Consider the episode finished, because it is impossible to escape the wrath of the Gorenger Storm. As soon as you hear Momo utter the words, Gorenger Storm, you're fucked. You're going straight to hell, literally. You are going to be punished for your crimes for all eternity. And when the second half comes around, the Gorenger Storm is replaced by the Gorenger Hurricane, where the squad plays rugby. The order going from Momo to Ki to Mito to Ao, and has the same effect after Aka performs a kickoff. But I want to use that to segue into the action and special effects of Goranger. As I alluded to before, there's nothing too special about the first half of the show, but you can definitely admire the creativity with the fights and the set pieces. Though it is the second half when the set pieces add a lot of flair to the show, especially when the team gets a new base of operations, new vehicles. This is where Goranger truly comes into its own, still keeping up with sweet fight choreography, even if it's just the Rangers doing the more impressive stunts. Goranger is a series that has so much going for it. Yeah, it's episodic and formulaic for the most part, but it's a series with a lot of heart and soul, and I want to bring that up by talking about what is perhaps the best episode in the series. But fair warning, huge spoilers for Goranger incoming, so if you don't want to listen, then skip to the time code on the screen. I'll give you all a few. Episode 67 of Goranger has gotta be one of the most inspiring pieces of tokusatsu I've ever witnessed. While Daigoro is helping transport chemicals, he makes a slip-up that causes the dangerous chemical named Kabika X to fall into the hands of the Black Cross Army. Daigoro is experiencing a lot of guilt as the Black Cross Army is weaponizing the chemical and feels as if he's responsible, especially as mass chaos erupts in Japan. The episode spends a lot of time dedicated to Daigoro and how he's handling the situation. Experiencing self-doubt, and after an accident involving a child, a friend of the Gorengers named Toru, Daigoro decides to take on the forces of the Black Cross Army by himself, single-handedly getting rid of Kabika X until Daigoro succumbs to a terrible fate, as he is killed in action. The Gorengers arrive at his final moments and wish him an easy rest. See why I compare this guy to Musashi and Benkei from Getorobo? What makes this episode phenomenal for me is that Daigoro, while not in the series for a whole lot, truly embodied the spirit of the Rangers. His tenacity and his willingness to place his comrades and even the world before himself makes his sacrifice all the more tragic. Before this, while he was shown to be a valuable asset to the Rangers, he always felt he wasn't quite on their level and was willing to prove himself to them. This episode really hits home the idea of what Sentai stands for, being that no matter who you are, everyone is capable of being a hero in their own ways. So yeah, this is a lot to take in from a cheesy Japanese superhero show from the 70s. But I feel like I have to note what makes tokusatsu so special in the first place. Tokusatsu has become such a beloved and inspiring subgenre of media thanks to its low-budget nature combined with the mass amounts of imagination and creativity poured into it. It's why characters like Godzilla, Ultraman, and Kamen Rider are considered some of the most important characters in Japanese entertainment. It's a subgenre that's become so unique to Japan's cultural identity that it's able to evoke themes relating to our own humanity in such an inspiring way. And before I close off this video, I just want to talk about the Goranger manga. The manga is basically a collection of ideas that series creator Shotaro Ishinomori had when trying to pitch the series. A lot of the original concepts that Ishinomori had in mind for Goranger are present in this manga, and would actually go on to inspire elements present in future Sentai entries, such as having the Rangers be teenagers, and kaiju are even thrown into the mix. It still does a fantastic job keeping that espionage feel in such a charming way. I also love all the references to Ishinomori's other works. If you haven't read it or are considering it, definitely pick it up. It's very much worth reading, especially since the Kamen Rider manga is also getting a release soon. As for the TV series itself, aside from a Hawaiian English dub known as Star Rangers from long ago,
5 Rangers, I'm not defeated yet. I'll get you.
Goranger never saw a proper localized release, not even from Shout Factory, who released a bunch of Sentai shows. So if you can, definitely check out Himitsu Sentai Goranger and experience the show that helped kickstart a new generation of tokusatsu and inspired audiences for generations to come. Thank you guys so much for watching. I just want to mention that this video was made possible thanks to my supporters on Patreon, so if you'd like to contribute to the channel for more content like this, then click the link in the description. And once I reach enough patrons, I'll do a video covering several unmade Godzilla films, so if that's something you'd like to see, then go support me on Patreon. Also want to give a huge shout out to Godzilla Gamer 77, aka my co-host Cole on Toku Titancast, for helping edit this video to take some weight off my busy schedule. Greatly appreciate it, man. Feel free to like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and this is TitanGoji, signing off.